Okay, so this is first playthrough through Valkie64. Neither me nor Doctor know what this game is about, and we're about to find out.
You're kind of cut out there for a little bit.
That's fine. Yeah, it could be worse. Long ago, in the realm of Selisa, the goddess of order and the goddess of chaos ruled together. But one day, the goddess of chaos yearned to take over the reign and rule on her own. She tried to defeat the goddess of order. The army of chaos, the reptiles, and the army of order, the guardians, fought a gruesome battle. In the end, the army of order won. The goddess of chaos was defeated. But the cost of victory was high, and only one guardian survived the battle. The guardian is you, Valkie. It is time for you to rise again. The goddess of chaos returned and tries to rule over all Selisa. Rise, Valkie. Rise is the last guardian of our realm. Okay, so that's the backstory. So I guess it's time to figure out what the controls are. Okay, so that's the jump. Interesting. So
it is very much Linkle. It's a Linkle in time. Oh my god, the frames.
Where is... Okay, so shift is run. There's 2 jump buttons. I don't know if the cinematic mode is working. Okay, fair enough. Valkie, you have finally risen. I call upon you because I sense the return of the goddess of chaos. It seems she regained her powers with the Chaos Gem. She amassed a new army of reptiles. Although the army is still small compared to our army of old, they already wreak havoc across the 4 realms. Oh, I'm supposed to be playing with a controller, that's why. Visit each of the 4 realms of Selisa that are connected to this temple. You will find the holy gems there. With these, I can create... I missed that part. I open the portals to all 4 realms for you. The order you collect the holy gems is up to you. Valkie, some realms are more dangerous than others. I would suggest you go to the realm of Kizin first, which is the Forest Temple. Which is where the Forest Temple is located. Talk to me anytime you need advice for your adventure. I believe in you, Valkie. Okay. So... Q is the attack button keyboard. Interesting. What happened to my, I can't say I control my, hold on.
Camera?
Oh, no. Yeah, my camera is, there we go. Okay, well, I fixed that, I got that problem fixed. They want us to go to the forest first, which is over here, I guess. So I guess now is about the perfect time to score. You can't run while your weapon's out. Interesting. How about I put it away?
That kind of makes sense.
Okay, so there's 2 attack buttons. Let's see. I guess we'll figure this out as we go.
Draw blood fire.
So I guess now is the perfect time to just talk about why I am 45 minutes late to my own stream. We did not realize that the Legion of Superhero movie was going to be as long as it was. Most of the other...
It was not worth it.
And it was definitely not worth it. I don't know that I'm going to watch any more of these DC animated movies, because the last 2 I've watched have assassinated the character. Characters that... They've assassinated the characters of genuine heroes.
Yeah, it's like the crazy part is that both of them wouldn't be technically bad movies. It's like they both actually would have functioned perfectly well as movies, and then they just do the one thing that they know for a fact would piss off the fans.
Yeah. Hold on. How do I... Oh, okay, that's how you get there. I'm gonna go... Son of a bitch. Okay, so... Well, that doesn't help me. That doesn't help me at all.
Yeah, I always hate that. It's like when you know a game is specifically designed either for keyboard or for controllers, when the devs basically don't even put the alternative option in there. for their instructions. So, like, if you're going to have the option to play on a different type of controller, it's like they specifically want you to play a controller here, but you're playing with keyboard and mouse. Like, if you're going to have the option to allow us to play with a keyboard and mouse, put in the instructions to play with keyboard and mouse.
Yeah. Okay, so while we just go around doing whatever it is we're supposed to be doing, I guess now is about the time we should just talk about the things that... Should we even give the devil his due for these movies? I mean, they started off pretty good. Like, I was actually really, interested in Green Lantern. So the two movies we're going to complain about are Green Lantern, Beware My Power, which I have a multitude of problems with, and I actually think is worse than the Legion of Superheroes. Which by the way,
at least with the Legion of Superheroes, you can basically weasel your way out of it. Like, they left enough room so you can basically weasel your way out of it with a sequel, which, God hoping they don't get a sequel for it. But the Beware My Power, there's literally nothing they can do to remedy that one.
Yeah. Oh, okay, now I need to figure out how to talk to this guy. Okay, there we go. Welcome to our dojo. You can read our combat text for free, but for the advanced combat techniques, you have to get a dojo pass from the village builder. Okay? Okay, so that's quest. Yeah, it's just... So my main problem with these is... I knew I was gonna hate Green Lantern Beware My Power the moment I realized he was based on Emerald Knights.
You're going to have to redo that one because oh my God, you basically broke there. I don't know what was happening.
Okay. Anyway, because I can't hear myself, obviously. So what I was saying was...
Yeah, that's why I'm here.
What I'm saying is, I knew I was gonna hate Green Lantern Beware My Power the moment I realized what story they were adapting and what character specifically was missing. As soon as I figured out that the Green Lantern part of the story was Emerald Knights, and they had left out the Spectre, I was fucking pissed, because I knew exactly how Hal Jordan's story was gonna end. And you know what? I was right. I knew exactly how that fucking story was gonna end, and there was gonna be no saving Hal, because, and you know what? They do save Hal in the fucking Emerald Knights thing. They don't... Okay, for a moment I was freaking out, because I thought my, cape... Fair enough. And that's the thing, it's like, Hal has... I know people are gonna hate me pointing this out, but in the comics, Hal has reduced culpability. He's one literally possessed by a demon in the fucking comic. And he's possessed by a demon, basically. But not even a demon. He's possessed by an evil god, basically, in the movie and in the comic version of the story.
Yeah.
But the problem is that that's why the Spectre was so important in the comic book version. Because that's how they were going to be able to save him. So the moment I realized that the Spectre wasn't in that movie, I was like, oh, you motherfuckers. You're gonna kill Hal Jordan to prop up John Stewart, who didn't even need the fucking help. Everyone already likes John Stewart. I can't think of a single fucking person I can't think of a single person who doesn't like John Stewart. And the thing is, the entire movie is an insult to him, because it's like, no, the script is predicated on the idea, the assumption, that in order to build up Hal Jordan, John Stewart, you have to tear down Hal Jordan, which is not the case. It is absolutely not the case.
Yeah, it's like, granted, he was originally designed for the animated Justice League series, but even then, it's like, and back then, at the beginning of that, he was just basically a black Hal Jordan. But they developed his character to the point where they're too distinct from each other to be incompatible with each other. But at the same time,
I disagree. Okay, go on.
Okay. Yeah, so it's like, even though that's what he originally started out with, as they built upon that foundation and found a way to separate the two to the point where it's like you can't say that they're the same character anymore. And Now, and the best part is, they did that without needing to tear down Hal Jordan. The few times they brought in Hal Jordan inside the animated series, they treated Hal Jordan with respect. Then we come to this movie, and it's like, I had no idea what the hell happened. It's like hey, we have an interesting idea. Okay, how are we going to do it? I don't know.
So I can't put my weapon away? I guess I'm screwed for the keyboard version of the game because I can't put my weapon away, it seems.
You want to just quickly turn off the game and switch to a controller?
Oh, how did I do that? What button was that? Okay, so it's F. F is a block. No, I can't switch to the controller because my controller needs to charge. But it's fine. Anyway, so, no, I disagree. I don't really think Jon Stewart in the beginning of the Justice League animated series is basically Hal Jordan. Like, yes, he fills the function of Hal Jordan as a founding Green Lantern member, but that's about as far as you can really stretch it, because character-wise, he's quite different. Even from the beginning, he's quite different character-wise.
Yeah, but you can kind of say the same thing for a lot of these type of, and I hate to compare Jon Stewart to this, but you can basically say the same thing with a lot of these type of woke characters. The main difference is that while he's filling the exact same functional role, they're treating both him and Hal Jordan with respect. When compared to these other type of situations and the ones that we're going to be talking about inside this conversation, they clearly don't.
Yeah, the whole idea for apparently the script is in order to build up one character, we have to tear down the other. It's like, no, they're literally on the same fucking side. You don't have to do that. It's completely unnecessary. So why?
In fact, like the entire tactic that you just mentioned, it's like tearing down one character to bring the other one up.
It's
sounds extremely much like not just an insult, but it sounds like a very antagonistic challenge. Like, it sounds like something that you would do to someone who's on the opposite side, but filling the exact same role.
Yeah, I could see that. You mean like, Hal Jordan, humiliating Sinestro kind of deal?
Yes.
But, and my problem with these movies is that they have some decent potential. I actually like the part of the movie which is about the war between Thanagar and Rand. That's an interesting concept. Too bad that the part about Hal Jordan is way more important. It's literal demoralization, in my opinion. The whole purpose of that.
And the worst part is, it just kind of shows on why the Haunted Spectre part of the story was not in there, is that entire part comes very late into the movie. Granted, it's a short movie, but it comes in very late into the aspect. Almost feels like an afterthought. It's like, oh shit, we had Hal Jordan gone for this so long. We need to have a reason for why he's not here. It feels very much like that.
And I can't fucking stand that movie. And I remember watching it in a group on Discord after we saw it, because you, me, and Omega all saw that movie together. And none of us liked it. Every single one of us were fucking.
Hang on, you're kind of. Hang on. I have to say, you were breaking up there. Right as soon as you said Omega, you started breaking up.
Okay, so what I was saying is, you, me, and Omega watched it together. Like, I think you and me watched it first, and then we showed it to Omega, right?
Yeah.
And then I showed it.
No, that's not what happened. Hang on. What actually happened is you saw it first because you saw where we can watch it for free. You decided to take a look at it first. I was thinking about watching it. Yeah, later, but then you saw it, and then you're like, "Oh no, I had to show Omega and Doctor this."
Yeah, you can just say me. You don't have to say
you
Doctor.
Yeah, and that's what happened. You showed me and Omega this movie, and they were both as irritated about it as you were.
Yeah, all three of us were livid when we got through that movie. It was like, the movie had some great potential. And then at the very end, it's like, look, I'm not fucking putting up with people demoralizing the... I know people like Next Talk would hate it when we talk about, like, comics as being American mythology. Fuck off! None of these motherfuckers actually understand what mythology is on an anthropological level, and I don't really care about the, what would you call it, the colloquial definition. I really don't. I really do not care about what the colloquial definition is. You do not have to have part of it as a religion to be a mythology. That is an incorrect definition of the term. But anyway, so yeah, the stories of DC and Marvel, they are our, like, literary gods, they are our monsters, they are our demigods and our heroes. But, you know, the kind of stuff that we don't have because we're not an ancient culture. That's the closest thing we have to that.
Yeah.
So, I'm not gonna sit here and just, like, take it when people are saying that. I'll be like, you know what, fuck off, I'm not gonna watch this. I'm not gonna pay for it. That's why we watched it for free. I have a bigger fucking movie collection and a bigger, like, manga and comic collection than a lot of these motherfuckers who complain about this shit. And everything I watch is pirated before I end up buying it. I pirate it for this exact reason. If it's shit, I'm not gonna pay any money for it. But if it's good, I'll gladly shell out some shekels for this stuff. I went backwards. Where the fuck was I supposed to go?
Yeah, it's like a perfect example.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's like a perfect example would be Puss in Boots: The Last Witch. While it was still in theaters, we actually watched it for free. Hey, and we really enjoyed that movie. And so when we saw that it was going to come out onto DVD and Blu-ray, we got them. I said we both got our own copies of it as soon as we could.
So, minor correction, I don't think it was really out in theaters. That is a weird glitch. I don't think it was out in theaters.
Oh, no, it was actually still. It was actually. I double-checked. It was still out in theaters when we saw it.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But
I was actually...
Yeah, but my point stands, like, we both bought and pre-ordered that DVD as soon as we finished it, because I was like, this is fucking great. I want more of this. So,
you're breaking up a bit.
Oh, for the love of... I said, yeah, but the thing is, like, unlike a lot of these people who complain about this shit, we actually pre-ordered it as soon as we had the opportunity to, because it was that good of a movie. It's like, you know what, I will pay for this.
Yeah.
But if it's not a good movie, I'm not gonna
it's like, and we would have actually got... Yeah, it's like, and that's why I am so good, so... what's the word? Okay, I'm just going to say it's supportive. I'm very, that's not what I'm looking for, but I'm just going to use it. It's like, I'm so much supporting piracy because of this. Like, I would much rather not watch a good movie or play a good game for free and then later get it than spend money on a horrible movie and regret my choices. Even if I don't have the money for the good one, yeah, even if I don't have the money for the good one. Hello, Legend of Zelda bots. But yeah, it's like even if I don't have the money for watching the movie or playing the games, like the fact I enjoy it and now it's on my radar to get later on is still a positive. It's going to get my money eventually because it's good. But then when you come to these type of movies and games that are just dog shit, and why should I spend money for it when I can basically find something way better?
Well, it goes back to the thing where it's like, people are willing to pay for... Oh, I'm about to die. People are willing to pay for things that they actually like. It's like, again, you know...
Yeah.
Everything I watch and read, I basically pirate before I get it. And I have a significantly larger collection of media than most of the people I know who are anti-piracy. Why? Because guess what? I already know what I want to spend my money on. Yeah, there we go. I knew that was going to happen eventually.
A perfect example of... I'm sorry, we were talking to each other at the exact same moment. What were you saying?
All I said is, it's the Yamcha death pose.
Yeah. Okay, and what I was saying is, like, we know for a fact that if these things are good, people will actually come and watch them, because we have two prime examples. Spider-Man No Way Home was in smack dab the later middle of the pandemic, and yet it beat everything that was happening before and after those couple of years. And it was still at the time when basically everyone was afraid to go outside. And then we have Puss in Boots here that basically took a while to actually start off, because everyone's like, oh, it's just the spin-off Shrek movie. But then when word started spreading around on how good it actually was, it started booming, and because everyone was hearing how good it was and starting to give it a try and were really enjoying it and going back to see it again.
I get the parry system down eventually. but okay, so we're off tangent here. As much as I would like to talk about the benefits of piracy, by the way, I actually paid for this game, so this is not a pirate. This is on my Steam Deck. But as much as I would like,
so you pirated, you think?
So as much as I would like to talk about the benefits thereof, I think we should stay focused on the DC movies we were aiming to complain about. So
that was just a small tangent we're doing. Tangent's over. Back to shitting on terrible movies.
So that's my problem with the Green Lantern movies specifically. But his Legion of Superheroes movies really annoyed the hell out of me. Again, and this is it, because Supergirl is one of my favorite DC characters. Like
And the worst part is, like, if they would have made Supergirl a bad character in this movie, we'd be like, okay, it's just one of the throwaway type of movies. Like, there's really nothing redeemable here. But the fact that Supergirl actually is a very good character in this movie, it's the part that hurts the most.
Yeah, and you know what the dynamic she has with Brainiac? Again, it's not even with Brainiac 5, but it's good. It's a good dynamic. I actually really, I understand how they become friends. It makes a lot of sense. There begins as a rivalry that they eventually develop respect for each other, even if they don't like each other. It's a real Monogatari. It's a real Monogatari. Not Monogatari. What the fuck is the name? Momotaro. There it is. The real Momotaro situation.
Yeah.
But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, with this particular movie though, the thing that I cannot stand about it is, I guess, spoilers for this movie that we're obviously shitting on. They completely undermine the entire purpose of Mon-El, who is one of the few good Daxamites. Daxam is not a particularly good planet in the DC universe. Like, they're not villains per se, but they are, galactic conquerors. And, they're space racists. You're not supposed to necessarily like them. And Mon-El was one of the characters, it's like, no, he was one of those, characters that rose above that particular situation. And the fact that they turned him into an irredeemable villain in the movie, it's like, this violates the entire purpose, the core of the character. What the hell?
Yeah, it's like Mon-El is basically like the Goku of the Daxamites, like where the Saiyans were basically a bunch of villains, and then Goku's the good guy who basically started turning the few remaining ones into good. Mon-El was kind of the same way. It's like he's from a race of villains, bad people, and then he himself proved that he's good, and then later on down the line, he's actually able to turn some more Daxamites into good.
Well, it's not so much that he's from a race of villains as much as he's from a disordered culture.
Yeah.
But I think that's what you're getting at. It's just in fiction, oftentimes, especially when you have these sweeping planet-wide societies, your species is basically associated with a particular culture. But, and another thing is just, a lot of the movie doesn't make any sense. Mon-El is a fucking Daxamite. These people, even at base, before any particular augmentation, can lift 100 million tons. There is no fucking way anyone outside of Supergirl in this particular situation is holding a fist fight with him. It's just not fucking happening. So So in that one scene where they get together and they're like, oh yes, we're gonna box Monel.
Oh, hang on.
All you motherfuckers are gonna die.
The only two that can actually handle that situation is the Phoenix Psychic Girl and Balloon Boy. Except those were two completely different reasons.
I can forgive you for forgetting that character's name, the first one, because I don't remember her name either, to be perfectly honest. I'm not a big Legion of Superhero fan, but Bouncing Boy is like really fucking...
Yeah, Bouncing Boy. Sorry, I was looking at something else at the moment. Sorry. But yeah, like those two characters right there are the only ones who have actually handled this situation, take on Monel, but for two completely different reasons. Bouncing Boy would be more along the line of basically holding Monel back, while the Phoenix Psychic Girl is basically, okay, I can actually hurt you.
And another thing. So, apparently Monel is the villain in this particular story, and it's like, but why? And also, the whole thing with the fucking, he's not a Green Lantern. Like, granted, yes, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Green Lantern when they introduce him, but you just took like one of the most powerful characters from the Green Lantern Corps out of the equation. And I guess maybe they did that for structural reasons for a future movie. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why it's like it feels heavily like they left it open for like a sequel where Monel could actually be redeemed. But at the same time, it's like the same problem that we have with these live-action movies and bad adaptations of video games and such. It feels like that they just took a skim, like a first paragraph look at the wiki and ran with that.
Now, another thing is, I can't even say that like the people who made this movie hate the stories, because I do think there is a significant degree of love put into certain characters. Yeah,
it's like, but you can clearly tell on which ones that they are going to put the certain amount of love into from the beginning.
Yeah. But there are some other things that irritate me in both movies, like, I don't really like how they awkwardly interjected racism as a social topic in the fucking, like, Green Lantern movie. How do I get in here? Like, I have the key. I have the key. I'm being an idiot. I'm so distracted by the conversation, I forgot I had the key.
But yeah, it's like I think I remembered exactly the line and the moment that you're referring to, but yeah, it's just like...
Not only did you and Omega just like audibly groan when that happened, I watched it in a stream on Discord, because I showed it to people on Discord, and everyone in the chat was like, oh, alright buddy, okay. I guarantee you, if we showed it to, I don't think we came up with a name for her, did we? I guess we can call her Auntie Ruckus for right now, just because...
oh yeah, that's the name she gave herself.
Okay.
She gave her name, that name to herself.
Okay, so I guarantee you, if we showed it to Auntie Ruckus, I guarantee you, she'd audibly roll her eyes. She would roll her eyes with such annoyance, you could hear it from across the room. Because it's like, I don't care, ratio, like, go away, I got a spam! Okay. Yeah, this sounds like a game that is probably much easier to play on a controller, so I gotta get my controller charged up for next stream. But
yeah,
like,
just because you brought it up, it's like it's something else I have to point out. It's like whenever these people make these stories and try to inject these race topics in them, haven't you noticed they always feel like as if they are saying that every single black person, every single Chinese person, every single...
has the same fucking understanding and opinion?
Not only has the same understanding or opinion, but feels like that they went through the exact same type of issues.
Yeah, I was like, that's just not how any group has ever worked. Okay, well, I died. It's like...
it's a practice suicide.
And you and me are a good example of that. It's like, you have autism, you know, I'm Hispanic, and our experience of life has been very different from a lot of people who are Hispanic and autistic. So it's like, yeah, this is annoying, because it turns out people don't just think... Okay, so, I'm not gonna...
Like, there's only one...
Okay, go on.
Like, there's only one story that actually has an autistic person that I can go, okay, I actually relate to this person. Like, it actually feels like something that the issues he went through actually feel like issues I went through, and the way of how he solves the issues actually feel like ways on how I've actually been trying to deal with my issues of autism. And it's that movie, The Accountant. It's like that's the only one that that's the only one I have seen that actually feels like that. But I'm not dissing all these other ones that try to have an autistic character, because I know they're not going for the exact same type of situations I've been through, or trying to solve them the way of how I had to solve mine.
So, what do you think about The Accountant? I have never been able to finish this movie. Oh my god. Okay. I don't know what happened there. Okay, I have never been able to finish this.
Yeah, that was a practice suicide.
I've seen the movie, The Accountant, from beginning to end, but never in one go. I just cannot do it. Every time I put it on, something happens, and I cannot watch the whole thing.
Fair enough.
But anyway, so back to the DC movies that we're shitting on. Where did we leave off? Oh wait, yeah, the whole interjecting racism thing. Like, again, every one of us is like, alright, buddy, calm the fuck down. And it's like, yeah, because guess what?
Like, it wouldn't be that much of an issue if it wasn't for the fact that this one specific type of issue with racism is the exact same one they have done for like 50 bazillion different stories in the past 5 years.
There's no nuance. There's no like. There's no thinking in there. It's like, well, maybe not everyone has the same experience, or like some of the old school leftists. I'm not making this political. I'm just going to point out a lot of the old school leftists understood that people who were actually and genuinely bigoted, not all of them were the same. Some of them had genuinely bad experiences, and so the way you got over that was you became friends with them. You showed them the time of day, and you showed them that they were wrong. But that takes actual work, and you know how Americans are with work. They're very allergic to it.
Yeah. Which is kind of weird, because we praise an entire generation that was built on working hard.
Anyway. Oh, man, I'm bad with this on keyboard. Holy shit. But, it's just,
do us a favor, don't quit your day job.
It's just, I don't want to fucking hear it. This is why I'm not gonna watch the Blue Beetle movie. I didn't really see the trailer. Everyone told me about that scene where it's like, Batman's a fascist. I'm like, yeah, I didn't see the trailer. And as soon as we saw it, because we saw this when we went to theaters to see the Super Mario movie. And
yeah.
As soon as you saw me, as soon as we saw that, I did the fist pump, fuck you. And I did the double barrel burn. It's like, yeah, no, fuck off. Now, granted, when I had heard this, I thought it was going to be Blue. I thought people were telling me Blue Beetle himself was saying that.
Yeah, like I have to say that the people who were talking. Hang on. May I interject for a second?
I completely stopped talking when you started.
Oh, sorry. It sounded like you were still talking. So basically, like, I will say that is a big issue with the people who are basically complaining about the scenes. Like, they woefully misinterpreted that entire scene. Like, every single and I've gone back to actually look at the people who we listened to and talk about that scene. Every single one of them, when they're talking about the scene, actually made it sound like that Blue Beetle is the one who said it.
Yeah, which would have been inexcusable as a writer, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But, I can at least... it's still the thing where it's like, this doesn't really have any place in the... How does this organically come up? Like, in the conversation? How does it organically come up with something that... Well, I guess it's like the schizo uncle being like... Because that's how I see it. When people are talking like this, it's like, yes, the reptilians control the government.
And yeah, it's like, I can understand fully why people hate that movie. It's like, if I was actually the person who was making that trailer and I was putting that line in there, it's like, I would have had it to where it's like, as soon as instead of doing what the trailer did and cut right after the Uncle Seth calls Batman the Passage, instead I would have had someone like Blue Beetle, specifically because they're using the version of Blue Beetle that's always been a huge fan of Batman. I would have had him basically goes like, how is Batman a fascist? He basically doesn't fit the definition. And then in the trailer,
Well,
like showing that.
To be fair, none of these motherfuckers have ever read anything by Giovanni Gentili anyway. They don't know what a fascist is. So it's like, granted, I'm not expecting everyone to have read every philosophical treatise and everything that's ever been written. I certainly haven't done that. But it's like, none of this stuff is... I just don't like the devaluing of terms for just an insult purpose. Like, no. In order to be a fascist or a Nazi, you have to meet certain criteria, because those are belief systems. You literally cannot be the thing if you do not qualify for it. I was hitting the wrong button that time.
Yeah, it's like, and that's actually the main issue that we've had with these writers. Like, you don't need to be full experts. Like, if you're writing a Superman story, we don't need you to tell us specifically which issue or issue of the volume of the Golden Age and exactly which page or the polar bear is so important. But what we're asking you is to at least know that Batman's parents are dead.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about this story. Because I dropped from DC Comics and Marvel quite a while ago, so a lot of this stuff that I keep hearing is like, I refuse to read these people. Granted, some of the new stuff, I'm like, okay, on occasion I'll find something that is like, I will actually read this, and if it turns out to be good, I'll buy it. But a lot of the stuff, it's like, I'm not really interested in it. Anyway, we keep drifting away from the movies. So back to the movies.
Yeah, but that kind of shows of how intertwined all these issues are.
Well, yes, we all know that DC's been under bad management for a while.
Yeah, it's like, tell us something that's actually new.
Oh no.
Yeah, back to the movie. Let's avoid the race topic issue because we've already been... The 2 times we tried to bring that up, we kind of dive-bombed away.
Okay, so the last thing I'm going to bring up about that is it also comes up with Triplicate Girl, and I can't stand, like, artificial, like, I don't like it when characters are race swap for a particular reason. One, it depends, I'm much more sympathetic to it when it's the Green Lantern. Like, I don't really have a problem with Jon Stewart for 2 reasons. One, he's not Hal Jordan, he's Jon Stewart. He's literally a different fucking person. But 2, Green Lantern isn't a well, I guess if you go back to the Golden Age, when he uses an actual fucking lantern, he isn't, a specific character. But the modern incarnation that began in the Silver Age with Hal Jordan, guess what? That's not a superhero name. It's a job description, like soldier, or marine, or police officer. So yes, of course you can have multiple versions of it, but Superman is not such a title. Spider-Man is not such a title. You can't fucking just switch them out, because when we hear Superman, we identify that with Clark Kent and Kal-El, because that's who Superman is. And if you don't meet that criteria, I'm sorry, you're not him. It's last. You don't die man, I guess.
Yeah. It was like...
And they did that with Triplicate Girl. They just switched her, they just changed. Well, it's even weird, because Triplicate Girl's not even a fucking human being. She's a Kerrigan. This is the thing with, like, Kryptonians, too, where it's like, you people don't understand
That's another issue I have. It's like, it's one thing when they basically do this type of race swapping thing when it comes to the humanoid characters, but you can basically drop out. It's like, oh, it's like an alternative timeline. It's like what if Superman basically fell at the doorsteps of Adolf Hitler. It's like, you kind of have a little bit of leeway with that, but with these non-humanoid characters, it's like, why is it that you're trying to equate the logics of humanity and how our skin tones work with species and creatures that have been canonically designed to be completely different and operate nothing like how we are?
Okay, so I'm gonna guess you're saying that because Triplicate Girl is... Because she is a humanoid, but I guess
you're breaking up here.
Okay, so what I'm saying is Triplicate Girl is a humanoid, but I guess the reason you're exempting her... Are you talking?
No, you were breaking up there for a second, and
you
didn't sound like you were
just now. That's why I'm like, okay. So, what I'm saying is, Triplicate Girl is a humanoid, but I guess you're making the exception for the purpose that she has 3 bodies. Like, That's literally a core part of her thing. No human being has that particular criteria. Like, no one has that experience. So it's weird to include her in the normal, I guess, intersectional discourse, because she's clearly not a human being. Like, no one can identify with that particular problem.
Yeah, like her, Superman, Starfire, specifically Starfire, and Triple Gate Girls, like, it's so very odd that they're trying to switch these characters into dynamics that both by morally, subjectively, and basically story-wise, make absolutely no sense.
I'm getting my ass kicked. Holy shit.
So it's new.
But, you know what, instead of just, like, doing this, let's try one of the other temples and see what that is, eh?
Yeah. I mean, if this is supposed to be the easiest temples, like, you kind of have your work cut out to where you...
Well, I'm also playing on a self-imposed handicap, so...
Fair enough. Well, not really... Oh, yeah, it's self-imposed because it's kind of your lazy by not charging your remote.
But, so, where were we? Oh, yeah, we were on trip with the girl, eh?
Yeah, and how they race swapped her. And how it makes absolutely no sense because of logic.
It's absolutely no sense. Even if, one, there are Black Legion of superhero characters. But two, so if you really wanted one, you could just use one of them. But two, I agree with Young Rippa. It is an absolute insult to just race swap a character and then be like, so you minorities, you must be, this must, placate you. It's like, no, that's why I don't really care when I hear about there being a Hispanic villain, or a character, or a hero. It's like, I don't fucking care. These modern writers, I really would rather them not write a Hispanic or a Texan character, because it's like, I don't want to see what the hell you people do with these things. Like, I'm Hispanic and I am Texan, and I don't want to see what y'all do with this, because, like, to be perfectly honest, these people don't respect these cultures.
And it's kind of odd because, like, before we actually get back on the topic, like, I'll bring this up, like, many of these people who basically the main reason why they do these race swaps is saying that it's in order because it's so difficult to make the minority actual heroes. But then they go off and praise Black Panther, who basically started out as a minority character and is still part of that.
Well, there's also the fact that, like, that Jon Stewart, for example, or Icon. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go out and limb here and say none of these motherfuckers, before they started doing none of these motherfuckers who say shit like this know who Icon is beyond a fucking, Reddit thread or a goddamn wiki search.
Yeah.
It's like, we have plenty of these characters. And if you really want more, make more. Like, okay, so I guess this is a good time for me to shill a product that no one's gonna fucking, like, listen here anyway. Because we're doing this mostly for fun, I don't really expect anyone to watch this stream. But as you know, I've been writing a story called Divine Will. And the main character, there's 3 protagonists, none of which are Caucasian, but it doesn't fucking matter, because that's not the point. Like, the first character we meet is half Bantu, specifically from the Lemba tribe, and half Chinese, specifically because I guess most people aren't aware that Chinese is not one thing in this. I'm talking mostly to the people who complain about race issues in the first place. They don't seem to understand this. She comes from the Kaifeng Jew, people, which is a thing most people aren't even aware of. And I had to do a lot of research to make sure that I haven't been able to use most of the information I've used in my research, but then get in the story eventually as, like, background information. But anyway, most people don't know anything about those 2 particular groups. And I didn't make that the background of the character for the purpose of inclusion. I meant it for the purpose of exclusion, very specifically. It's like, look, I'm not going to play this intersectional game. The characters I'm going to write, they're going to come from a background that none of you intersectional dipshits can actually empathize and actually, like, draw from your experience from. Because guess what? That's not what the purpose of a hero character is. Not for me to see myself in. That's not the purpose. The purpose of these different characters is supposed to, how would you say, identify with them on deeper levels. It's like Young Rippa. one of his favorite characters growing up was the Flash. Actually, I took a course in this stupid shit. As you know, I took a course in intersectionality, and I got a 95 in the course. And it is the most useless course I have ever taken because it's all bullshit. That being said, though, my whole final project for the class was specifically about comic characters and superheroes and how people identify with them. And I pointed out, it's like, no, none of us identify because it's like, oh yes, I see myself in them because it's my race. None of my favorite characters are Hispanic. There's a reason for that. I don't fucking care. But you know who are my favorite characters? Characters like Superman and Supergirl. I fucking love Batman as a character. Like, I like all the Justice League characters. I like most of the primary Avengers characters, yes. But there's a ton of other characters that I actually really enjoy. And none of them are for the purpose of... Why would I like anime characters if it was that I had to see myself in them? None of them are fucking Hispanic outside of Chad from Bleach. And even then, it's like, to be fair, Chad is not the character I would most identify with. I like him, but he's not the character I would most identify with in Bleach. So it's like, this is not how most people relate to characters. And if this is how you relate to a character, I'm going to be I'm going to question your personality, because it seems like there's something defective in you specifically.
Shoot, going back and going to that type of topic, like, one of the characters I really do enjoy and really hate how they mishandle him recently, especially near the end of the MCU, is Iron Man. But everything about Iron Man should be completely against what I am. Like, he is pro-authoritarian. And he's the one who basically built a lot of the stuff that ends up causing problems that not only helps the Avengers, but at the same time later on ends up causing issues for them because someone else takes what he has designed and use it against them. And even though they did retcon it to where he built Ultraman inside the second Avengers movie, yeah, Ultron in the second MCU movie. Yeah, but this isn't the first time that they had done it. And even then, and it's like every single time that they had done it, it's like Iron Man understands where the issue is. It's like every single choice Iron Man makes is a choice I vehemently oppose. But the reason why I like the character is because he actually learns from his mistakes. He makes the mistakes, and he understands where he made them. Yeah, he takes responsibility. Like, again, so going back to the old one,
you don't identify with him based on the race, you identify with him based on the values he has.
Not even the values he has. I identify with him
by his political values, but his personal values.
Yeah, his personal values. Like, I understand where he comes from with his authoritarian, and even though if he was a real person, I would vehemently oppose them on everything he has done. I would be one of the people out there yelling at his street, saying what he's doing is wrong. But at the same time, I can understand why he does all these things, understand where his faults are, but praise the fact that not only do we have a character like this, but the fact that he's actually willing to learn, accept his responsibilities, and grow from it.
Look, I don't care what anyone says, fucking Iron Man is very consistently on the wrong side of most moral conflicts when it comes up to the superhero community. He was on the side of Captain Marvel, who was trying to kill a fucking teenage boy because of a Minority Report style prophecy that didn't even necessarily indicate what was actually going to happen, only what was probably going to happen.
Oh no, and not only that, but if you go by how they even wrote it into comics, he wasn't like the people who he was after that he was helping support her to go out there. The prophecy didn't even say that they were going to be the ones causing it. All it said was they were in the general area where it's gonna.
Yeah, they were involved.
Not even that they were. No, not even that they were involved. They were in the area, in the place where it was most likely the perpetrator could be.
Well, just because you're involved in something doesn't mean that you bear responsibility for it. You know, a firefighter is involved in a fire, but that doesn't mean. Oh shit! I hit the wrong button for the parry.
I don't want to really see
that. In a fire. It doesn't mean he has any responsibility for starting the fire.
Yeah, fair point.
But yeah, it's like still
they're
like the guy,
involved, but
even
we
though
don't even.
Yeah, but that's because we understand that there is something deeper and more true in the character that is admirable, even if he makes mistakes.
Yeah, the best part about that is like inside that exact story that we were just mentioning. They try to portray Iron Man and Captain Marvel as the good guy, even though just by saying what's happened, you can clearly tell they aren't.
Yeah, they're fucking anti-heroes at best. I would argue Captain Marvel particularly is acting like a fucking anti-villain.
Yeah.
Like she's trying to commit fucking murder. There. So back to the movie. So as we fucking droned on about, I guess, for a while, we don't really. It's not. We have no opposition to black characters. Like I'm actually writing a lowercase black, because let's be fair, capital black is political. But I'm writing a lowercase black, very specifically Bantu character, and I think she's quite likable. Like I can guarantee you, a lot of these people who are race-first character, like writers, the intersectionalists, they're gonna hate her guts. But that's just because the entire point of the character would undermine what they believe, very specifically about how people identify, what it is to be good, basically. And you don't do anyone a service by just changing the race of the character. If you want to have more representation on racial lines, how about you actually write characters with more diverse racial, classes, because that's, let's be fair, intersectionalism is a class conflict ideology. But
yeah.
Why don't you write these people who are likable? And they can't do it because they wrote these are the kinds of people who wrote the fucking X-Men as terrorists. I'm still not gonna. I can't believe that someone wrote an X-Men comic where they slit the throat of a man who littered. What the fuck? Like, that's not a hero. That is a villain. They're eco-fucking terrorists.
Yeah, like, that's a villain straight up. There is absolutely no way you can justify that moment.
Now, granted, like, just because you're a villain doesn't mean you're an unlikable character. I'll give you an example. John Wick, the Punisher. I refuse to let anyone say the Punisher is a hero unchallenged. The dude gets innocent people killed all the time, and he doesn't really care for justice. He is looking for vengeance. Son of a bitch didn't respond to me that time. So I don't accept Okay, go on.
There's also another character that is basically that as well. That I say is a bigger type of partition. No, I'm saying even more than him. Spawn.
Yeah, you know what? Spawn is an anti-villain. But you know what? To be fair, I don't think when people call Spawn an anti-hero, I think it's more out of habit than it is actual consideration.
Yeah, enough.
I think it's more of a thing that like people aren't really thinking about it. They just it's just a thing people say and it just goes unchallenged. But the thing is, like, the Punisher. It's like, I was in the army. I would never fucking in a military capacity. I would never put anything related to the Punisher on anything I was doing if I was still in the military. Would never fucking happen. Because that's not what I intend to embody. I would not be looking for vengeance. And this is why it always weirds me out when I see, for example, police officers. And I'm the only person who says this. One of my former coworkers, my supervisor, in fact, he could not stand seeing police officers, because he used to be a police officer himself, with Punisher paraphernalia, wearing Punisher paraphernalia. It's like, what the fuck are you doing, my guy? You do realize if the Punisher was real, he would be on the fucking most wanted list. He's a mass fucking murderer, and half the people he kills, one, aren't related to what happened to him at all. But let's just say that, for example, that we just take him at face value and he's just taking out the trash, right? He gets innocent people killed. He does not care.
You're bringing up there.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so he doesn't care, historically speaking, in the comics, if you're actually involved with anything. If you get in his way, you're gonna die. Even if you got in the way accidentally. So it's like,
I don't know, and that's why I felt so weird about that Warzone movie. It's like, it's a decent enough movie, but the fact that, in the beginning of the movie, he's actually upset that he killed someone who basically had nothing to do with what the mafia or criminal organizations in people. So it's like that just weirded me out because like, hold on, is this actually the Punisher we're watching?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's not a bad film, but it does deviate away from the Punisher. In my opinion, it makes him more sympathetic. But I don't think the Punisher is that kind of character that you should want to justify. I think the Punisher works best as a sympathetic anti-villain. Someone who is very clearly needs to be stopped, but you at least understand why they're doing what they're doing. Man, we're just like all over the place right now. We really don't want to talk about the fact that like how they did Mon-El dirty, do we? Holy shit.
Like I said, I don't think it's the fact that we don't want to talk about that. It's the fact that all of these issues are so woven together with everything else that's been going on in comics and films and in AAA games. It's like we can't really talk about these movies without diverging to the other ones because it's so woven together that moving the conversation to the next topic just feels so natural.
Alright, I'm just gonna go to the end. See if I can just activate this thing and skid out of here, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're not good with that sword at all.
Right. I mean, I think of the fighting classes I have taken, swordplay is not one of them. But I didn't exactly stay long enough to be good in the ones I did attend anyway.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure you're as skillful in this game with a sword as you are in real life.
Right. I'm not being stabbed.
Again, I'm probably your mistake.
But that's the thing is like, just my main upset with these two DC movies is they had real potential, and I was really enjoying them for most of them until I noticed what the fuck was going on. Like and you can tell when I noticed that Mon-El didn't have a ring, a power ring. You can tell I was worried.
Yeah, oh no, I was worried too, but as you, but like,
But as soon as I could get a little story,
hang on.
Okay.
Let me say, it's like, I was worried, but having a little bit of optimism, like, optimism is the word, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah, it's like a little bit of optimism. Yeah, because like, hey, maybe this is a story before he becomes Green Lantern. It's like I was hoping for that, and then when they decided to turn him into a twist villain, which I absolutely hate all these twist villains because there's no build-up to it whatsoever. It's like when they decided to turn him into a twist villain, it's like you and me both grown at that, and then we paused to take a second. I'm like, okay, this could potentially work. This is probably the origin on how he becomes a hero, and then no, they ended the movie before he switch sides and become the heroes.
Oh no! Oh no! Let me press yes, damn it! Let me press yes!
Wait, what?
I said, oh no! Let me press yes, damn it! I'm trying! How do I get past this? None of the keys seem to work!
Des, if you ever watch this, I think we found a major game-breaking bug you need to work on.
Yeah, I'm pressing all the buttons and I don't seem to be able to get out of this.
It's funny how the one thing that stopped our ranting is literally a game-breaking bug.
Oh shit, hold on, what button did I press for that? I actually missed it. One of them actually worked.
Oh, thank God. The stream can continue. Whoever's watching.
No, but they were so good for it, and I actually really like how they drew, for example. Oh my god. And okay, so there's a couple things. One, I don't think that there was a very consistent through line in the movie, because there are certain decisions in this last movie that make me think that maybe there were the different people involved in the film had different ideas. Because I'm trying to think of an example. Like, for example, Supergirl's outfit at the beginning. Okay, so another thing is, I knew something was fucky from the very beginning when Supergirl's father was out of the picture. And I'm like, I have Supergirl Girl of Steel. You know, the one from post Crisis on Infinite Earths and all, but before the fucking Final Crisis stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, I actually have this. And it was her mom that went fucking nuts in the story, and her dad was the one who rescued her. So I knew something was weird, but I just kind of let that one slide, because I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe they're taking an Elseworld version that I'm just not aware of.
And I believe I actually kind of made a joke about that, where I basically said, common trend nowadays, we can't have some strong single mother, it has to be a mother. Or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that applies more to cartoons, though. But, yeah, but you get my point, though. It's like, that was an important part of Supergirl Girl of Steel's actual story. Was just how Krypton collapsed. And I think that that's my personal favorite interpretation of the last days of Krypton, is the idea that the Phantom Zone is actually the underworld. I actually really like that idea, that when you send people to the Phantom Zone, you're sending them to the same realm that places like Yomi from Japanese mythology and Hades from Greek mythology exist, in the underworld. It is the land of the dead. It makes total sense, thematically speaking. And the fact that, the death of Krypton in Supergirl Girl of Steel is because the ghosts, again, the specters, these spirits that live in the underworld, don't particularly appreciate, them sending their criminals into their domain, and they come out and they twist the residents of... Hold on, I want to see what happens if I jump in here.
Submarine ice physics.
Oh, it's a hot spring. Oh, I can heal here. Anyway, so, that's good to know, but, where was it? I really like that. I really like that idea, and I was like, I just wish more people would use that, because it makes, again, it helps to tie the world together. I like how, when they manage to tie together the different alien civilizations that they've actually had some interaction with each other. Like, I like the idea that in, for example, Zack Snyder's, movie, where it's like, okay, so then how is it that the new gods know of the Kryptonians, they're world conquerors, and yet Darkseid has never lost a fight outside of Earth, and yet a Kryptonian would be very, very useful for them, and very clearly, you need something to explain why the Kryptonian ship knows who Steppenwolf is. Like, there's just pieces that don't fit together until you realize, oh, Darkseid is an evil despot who probably faked a lot of his people's history, so that he only has one loss. But either him or his father very well may have, Yuga Khan, may very well have actually attempted to conquer Krypton and failed. It would explain why they're so xenophobic, why they're so militaristic. They've had an encounter with an alien race, specifically the New Gods, and it ended it was a horrifying time. Oh my god, it won't block. But anyway,
the more we talk about DC,
and it fits because, specifically, remember what they called Doomsday? They called him the Desolation Without Name? They made Doomsday before. Why would they have done that? And when you bring out, it's like, oh, okay, now I see what it is. When you bring it up, it's like, oh, Doomsday was made for the Apocalyptians to prevent that shit from happening. It actually ties together really well. And I like it when they do that.
You know what's the craziest part is? Like, I bring up that line to people when they're complaining about the movie and how much this Doomsday doesn't look like the original, the OG Doomsday that we all know. It's like, one, we actually see him starting to turn into that. He's taken out before it. And two, it's like I point out, it's like, even if they aren't going to go that route with this, we have another Doomsday out, and I point out to specifically that line, and it's like, every single time I do, they always seem to ignore the fact that line exists, along with a bunch of other lines that happen in the movie.
I mean, to be fair, it is just fashionable nowadays to shit on the Snyder movies, even though they're not bad films at all. Like, granted, like, the theatrical versions tend to be pretty wonky, but when we get the actual extended cut, it's very consistently a good movie.
Yeah, you can't blame the theatrical cuts on Snyder. Those are specifically Warner Brothers.
And also the thing is, like, I hate it when people are like talk about like the Marvel formula. It's like, how about we don't make movies formulaic and think that in order for a movie to succeed, it has to follow a particular formula. It's like the people who talk about the hero's journey as if it's the only kind of story that's worth telling. It's like, no, you're a fucking idiot.
I'm going to interject here. Like, the one thing I bring up is like, when people bring up the Marvel formula, the one thing I point out is like the reason why the MCU became such a big thing and why it became the reason why the MCU became the massive multi-million-dollar franchise it has, even though at the beginning Marvel, Disney, and basically everyone else in the cinematic universe for Marvel would work. The reason why it actually worked is because it ignored all the formulas that were around the time. And they decided to do their own things with these movies, and then hope that it all come together, which it. I wouldn't say it actually did. I think the reason why it was such a big success is because the hype around an idea like this was heavily outweighed the flaws, but still, it worked. It worked because it was not following the formulas of the past stories. These were superhero comic stories brought to the big screens, and that's how they wrote them originally.
Yeah, okay, so one thing I will defend the MCU about that I think is a really stupid complaint, it's like, okay, so if you're gonna make a video game movie, I think the best video game movie so far is the Mario movie. I have my gripes with it, I think it's a good movie, I do have a couple nitpicks about it, but the thing is like, it's the best video game movie out there because it actually embraces the fact it came from a video game. And that's the thing, it's like, if you're gonna make a comic movie, why don't you embrace the thing that actually makes comics work? Yes, you need to succeed as a movie, which means that you do need to have self-contained stories. Guess what? It's not how superhero stories fucking work. They work on it, they're not meant to be consumed in the same way. To be fair, it's Pulp Fiction. Most superhero stories are meant to be consumed and then discarded. That's why they were made on. That's why it's called Pulp Fiction. The original stories were made on paper that was literally not meant to last.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is like, so it makes sense that we have with these superhero movies, these large cinematic universes that go from movie to movie. I kind of wish the stories were better quality. You know, I tuned out of Marvel before Endgame, and I didn't really care for Endgame. And when it happened, I'm like, look, I'm glad y'all enjoyed Endgame. I didn't personally care for it, but.
No, I can kind of say it's like the reason why you and me basically fell out of Marvel before Endgame happened is because we kind of noticed the cracks that are happening in the movies that originated from comics were starting to show in Phase 3. It's like Civil War. I still don't. I say the movie is way better than the actual comics, but both of them have such huge glaring flaws that I can't really call either one good.
Okay, that one was all on me.
Yeah.
But,
and so it's like, and that was kind of like one of the first parts of Phase 3, and even the actual good stuff from Phase 3, like the Doctor Strange movie, we could actually see the cracks that would later formulate into the issues we have with the movies and shows nowadays with Marvel. So
my main complaint is... Okay, go on.
Yeah, it's like we kind of saw the cracks happening, and like we at a certain point, just because the hype kind of died down for both of us, immediately way longer and way quicker than it did for everyone else. It's like now that just because the hype was down and we saw the cracks that were forming and where it was eventually leading, we kind of dipped out long beforehand. So we didn't enjoy Endgame as much as anyone else did. We kind of enjoyed only like the first third of it, and then in the middle third was like a slog through, and then we were kind of bored out of our mind for the final third. But it's like we kind of, and I'd say that's the reason why we dipped out long before anyone else, because these cracks started to form, and we saw them more as detriments than anyone knew that they were going to be at the time.
Okay, so I can't do that. But yeah, no. Another thing is like, if I'm gonna go see a Marvel, if I'm gonna go see a comic book movie, I want to see the fucking comic book characters. So it's like, look, if I'm watching these DC animated movies and Mon-El is a fucking supervillain without any kind of real explanation, like, no, I didn't get to see Mon-El. Why did you even put someone with that name on screen? That's not him. I don't care whether or not you say it's him. That's not him. He doesn't act like Mon-El in any way, shape, or form. And same thing with like when, oh my god, with my two particular gripes with Marvel, the two biggest ones are the Hulk and fucking Thor. Because it's like, look, I'm not seeing the mighty Thor when I go see Marvel movies, which is already annoying enough for me. And
yeah, we're seeing the emancipated Thor.
and I'm not seeing, when I go to these movies, I'm also not really seeing the Hulk either. It's like, when Hulk took that beat down, and I'm like, look, yes, he would be beaten by Thanos. Thanos has the Power Stone. He would get his ass fucking whooped. But Hulk would not be terrified about that. He would be very fucking bitter and resentful about that. Hulk is a schemer. He remembers shit, and he gets back at you when you least expect it. Don't we remember even in the first Avengers movie, when everything is at peace, and he just fucking punches Thor to get back at him for hitting him with his hammer earlier in the movie?
Yeah, that was a beautiful line. That was a beautiful moment. One, because it was comedic, and two, it was so much like the Hulk. That's so, like, yeah, it's like, so it's like, if the Endgame was written by actual comic book fans and not by corporate execs, what happened was that Hulk is beaten by Thanos. Hulk gets angry, realizes he can't beat Thanos with his pure strength, so he has to work smarter. He has to realize he has to coordinate with Banner in order to actually be able to.
I can give you an exact example of the times this happened. Think about, for example, when in the older Silver Age comics, oh my god, when Thor fought the Thing. It's like, oh, I can't break his skin, but I don't have to. There are other ways I can overpower him than breaking him apart. Also, what about when he fought the Juggernaut? It's like, oh, I can't stop the Juggernaut, there's too much momentum, and I can't physically overpower him, so what do? I fucking judo throw him. I use his own momentum against him. The Hulk is not a stupid character. He's actually very smart.
Hang on. We don't even have to go to the actual comics themselves. We can even go with the movies, like the original live-action Hulk, the one that really had those comic panel transition type of scenes.
I don't care what people say, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's like, there were moments inside there where Hulk was actually getting his ass kicked on the foes, like the dogs and then his own fodder. And then when pure raw physical strength wouldn't work, he switched to a more tactical type of style as a Demon too. Some logic was kind of wonky, but it worked. And then we go to the Incredible Hulk, where basically Abomination was physically stronger than him at every single point throughout the entire movie. So it's like, when that didn't work, he started to fight smarter. He basically gave himself a weapon with the cars. He started using the chains. Like, everything about the Hulk was still a brute force, but he decided to fight smarter. People understand what the logic behind the cars is. Because I've talked to a couple people, and they don't seem to understand that there's an actual reason he picks up the cars. The reason he picks up the cars is his hands are not moving slower. But now there's more mass behind his fist. It's the reason why boxing is more dangerous than bare-knuckle boxing. It's actually a fucking clever move on his part. He's adding more momentum behind his swing. And you know what? And we go back to the Avengers movie where basically Hulk was having difficulties taking down that one flying machine, that one flying vessel type of creature. So what does he do? He rips off a piece of it, slams it into its neck, and then Thor comes around and smacks it with his hammer. And then we go with Age of Ultron, where basically, once again, Hulk is fighting smarter. He is still doing it. Now, granted, Age of Ultron is where he's basically the most bashing of the Hulks, but even then, he's fighting smarter. They're quick, short moments, but so you can actually see that he's using the multiple different models of Ultron to basically throw and block others.
Yeah, I'll give you a better example. In the first MCU movie with the Hulk, so the Incredible Hulk, which by the way, I still think is a really good movie. What does he do when he loses his footing? When they're hitting him with the fucking sonic attack? It's very simple.
He grabs a piece of metal, uses it as a shield.
He not only does he use it as a shield, he plants it in front of him and he keeps it steady so that his feet aren't taken underneath him. And then he uses one of the shields as a thrown blade. So yeah, you know, that's the kind of thing. That's what the Hulk does. When the raw physical strength doesn't work, he does think, and he is very clever about how he fights. So it's like, this is why I refuse to accept they said that this interpretation of the Hulk is a good interpretation of the Hulk. No, it's really not. And neither is the interpretation of Thor. Like, it really is not. First of all, movie Thor, granted, yes, the movie characters in many respects would be fucking bodied by the comic book characters. I understand that there are particular limitations in some of these characters. Two characters that should not have been...
Especially because they went into live action format, which, let's be honest, no matter how much you try to offend it, there's only so much you can do in live action when compared to, like, animated or drawing. So you kind of have to work with what you can do.
But I don't really think that really applies for the Hulk in Thor particularly, because even within their respective movies, Thor has boundless strength, and so does the Hulk. I think people don't really understand how strong these two fucking characters are. They're absolutely wild. And yes, this goes into scaling issues and blah 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 blah. Scaling doesn't really mean anything according to some people. But no, for storytelling purposes, I think scaling is actually really, really important. Let me test. I want to test to see if this heals me. Okay, so this is not a steam thing, so I can't heal. Oh god, he went into the water. Oh no, I'm about to die.
I'm in danger.
Literally in the wrong frequency. Oh no, my camera! No! I've been trained by my camera! Ah! But, what were we talking about again? Oh yeah, just
basically,
I didn't go to the fucking, like, I'm not here to see someone dressed up as the Hulk. I'm here to see the fucking Hulk. Just like, if you're gonna put Mon-El on screen, I'm not here to see a cosplayer. I mean, if you want to cosplay as Mon-El, that's fine. And, oh my god. So,
yeah,
I'm going to a tangent about cosplay in a moment, but the thing is I want to see these characters.
And people try to defend it, basically like saying, "Oh, it's our interpretation of characters." Like, here's my example.
The interpretations can be wrong.
No, hang on. Let me finish what I'm saying. Like, here's my type of counter. Would you like to go to a convention where you get to meet Robert Downey Jr. in person, or do you want to go to a convention where you can see a Robert Downey Jr. look-alike in person?
I mean, yeah, I would say that that's a really apt description of my particular complaint.
Yeah. And that's basically the exact same type of thing I say. Like, these characters are not the ones we come to see. They're just basically lookalikes. They're just stunt doubles. We want to see the actual characters.
Yeah. Oh no.
The frames, the audio, everything's wonky. Okay, it looks like it's recovered.
Well,
it looks like everything's recovered.
At least I'm saving it from, my computer, so, oh god. Oh!
Yeah, you did not dodge that well.
Anyway. But yeah, it's the same thing with the animated movies. I'm not here to watch an animated movie about, like, a Superman look-alike if I'm watching a Superman movie. I want to see Superman. This is why it's like, I'm very critical of Elseworld stories. It's like, I don't think, for example, Injustice is a very good Superman story. Like,
oh no, I say it's one of the worst.
So before I get on to, like, a greener pastures conversation-wise, here's something that I think people need to remember, because I ended up talking about this when talking about the latest Ruby volume. I think people need to remember that there's a difference between finding enjoyment in something and something being good. But also, I think people need to recognize that in order for something to be good in an objective sense, that means that there has to be something in particular that makes something, there has to be an essence to something. Something that has to conform to. Like, if we're talking about movies, in order for a movie to be good, it has to conform to a particular pattern defines, what a movie is supposed to be. There may be very different ways to make a good movie, but there has to be some kind of underlying structure or superstructure that makes this definition, right? So,
yeah.
Just because you didn't enjoy something does not mean that the movie is not good. Let's say you went and you watched, let's say The Godfather, right? And for some reason you didn't enjoy it. That doesn't mean The Godfather is a bad movie, it just means you didn't enjoy the movie. And at the same token, it's like, look, if you went and you watched, for example, what's a good example of something bad that we haven't talked about yet?
The OG Super Mario Brothers movie?
Oh yeah, so let's say you don't, that's cute. Don't give up there. Let's just say that you enjoyed the Super Mario Brothers movie. You can still recognize, oh yeah, it's an objectively bad film, but I still enjoy watching it. There's nothing wrong with it. The two things are maybe tangentially related, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And you can drag out other implications from this. For example, when we're talking about whether something is good or not, the question is okay, good with respect to what? What is the pattern with which we're seeking to explore here? So it's a good science fiction novel is written very differently, for example, than a good romance novel. You can be a good romance and science fiction novel, but the two are not mutually inclusive or exclusive.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive, and one of the two is going to have to take over a little bit. Are you going to focus more on the romance setting and have the sci-fi elements basically being like a setting? Or are you going to focus more on the sci-fi and just have the romance be like a subplot?
But anyway, so my point was about the fact that if we're going to say something is good in this particular way that has binding authority, we're assuming that there's something objectively good. Some objective criteria by which these things can be judged independent of our personal enjoyment.
Yeah.
So, well, the problem is that most people can't define this very well. Even many of the people who are critical and it's like, oh yeah, it's objectively bad. What is objectively good? You have to know that before you can get to the bad part, because here's the thing. Bad is not a substance. Good, what bad is not to sound like a parenthetic here, but bad is just a lack of the good. It's a lack of what you're supposed to be. It's a deprivation. It's not a substance in and of itself. We're not Manichaeans. We should have been able to get past this a long time ago. So, if you know what's bad, presumably you can help us define or figure out what is good. Because you have at least some inkling of what that is. And I argue that there is objectives in aesthetics, and it's not all, completely subjective. There is a subjective element of aesthetics, such as your enjoyment, but there's an objective component in there too. And the reason I say this is because when we talk about aesthetics, and that goes for things like movie criticism, we speak in a way that presumes that there's something objective we're talking about. Son of a bitch. For example...
that's a weird thing. That's a weird thing when I find when it comes to most of these critics. They speak about these type of topics as if they're as if there's an underlying type of guide you have to go through. But then when we find something that they really enjoy that doesn't actually fit that mold, you could see just how easily they're willing to throw it down and be like, oh, this thing never mattered to begin with.
I mean, there is a particular possibility that you might be able to get something to conform to a pattern in a counterintuitive way. What I mean is whatever the pattern of goodness is, let's say the logos or the Rita or the Dharma of cinema, for example, right? Or the Tao of cinema, I guess, whatever more fancy word you want to use. It is entirely possible that you could have counterintuitive confirmations to a sort of Tao of filmmaking, and that's why some films are good while they seem to break the pattern, because they conform to the pattern in a subtle way that's unexpected. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not that it breaks the rule, but rather that it reinforms us of the rule in a way that we didn't expect. I'm not sure how Because I'm not an aestheticist. I'm not an aestheticist. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But we're still presupposing that there's something that makes these things good and these things bad when they're good and bad. But also, I think we need to remember that just because there's objectives like this doesn't necessarily mean everything is held to the same standard. It's like, if I have a 4-year-old, like, draw what's objectively good, like, we have a degree of relativity in this objectivity. Like, they're still trying to conform to the pattern, but we don't judge them by a reference to the pattern in isolation. We judge them with respect to their ability to conform to the pattern. And it's the same thing when we talk about, like, morality. Why don't we hold, for example, people who are cognitively deficient to the same moral standards as people who are cognitively, proficient? And the reason why is because they don't have the same capacity as the person that is being judged more critically. It's as simple as that. They literally can't conform to themselves to the pattern in the same way. And that's why I think that people, when they're like, be kind to yourself as an artist, and like, be kind to people who are starting out in the arts, I think that they have a point. Because, again, it's like, you're not going to be a master at the very beginning, obviously, right? And
you're not going to be a master at the beginning, but even if you are one of these people who basically surprises the nation, surprises the industry by being very good at it, you're going to
take to it, right?
better. Yeah, you're like if you're one of these people who just somehow takes to it, you're going to improve as you go on, if you're willing.
But that's the thing, is that I do think that when we're talking about this stuff, these people, we were charitable with them because we understand they do not have the capacity as of yet to conform to the pattern. But they do have some ability to identify and act on that pattern. And if they don't understand, if they don't have that capacity, we treat them accordingly. So if you do not understand the pattern, we don't judge you in the way of someone that understands the pattern, but we still hold you in some respect, to that pattern. Just in a limited respect. Because, that's how you have to handle these situations. And but the thing is here is that these movies don't have this excuse. Like, the people writing these movies have the ability to conform to the pattern. They have the ability to identify good storytelling, and they choose to degrade their writing by focusing on shit that doesn't fucking matter to their story. It's like the whole thing where it's like you're interjecting things that have no real meaning or benefit or real use in your story. Like, from a storytelling perspective, what did the whole, I deal with racism every day comment from, the Green Lantern? What the fuck did that do? It serves no function in the story. It doesn't even really tell us about the character, because it's so forced in the scene. It's like, oh, okay, buddy. You probably see fucking racists in your soup. Go away. It's the same, it's the same thing that fucking, on the other side, since, it was obviously an intersectionalist who wrote that. Let's go to the other side. It's like when Mike Cernovich is like, well, libertarians are always going to side with communists. It's like, yeah, because you see communists in your soup. But anything that doesn't conform to you, is automatically the enemy. Not everything is the same. Royalists, Republicans, anarchists and libertarians are not the same thing. And if you think they are, you're an idiot. And the word that you're using to denigrate these people, it's like when people call them rightists or Nazis on the left. Usually what that means is anything that I don't like that I disagree with. Whereas on the right, sometimes a lot of people use the word communist in the very same way. But which all it does is it steals the power of the term away from the word. It's actually very counterproductive.
Yeah, to the point where basically, if you actually encounter someone who's actually a Nazi or a communist, you can't really use the word because to rally people against them, because the word has lost all meaning. Calling them that is basically to your point, you use it so much that calling them that, you're basically like saying hello to your neighbor.
I swear to God, if I become the political VTuber on accident instead of Pip and Pippa, Pip and Pippa's all like, I'm not the political VTuber, and I'm like, I'll be the political VTuber. I mean, I'm not gonna be abrasive about it. If you're a royalist, you think monarchy is the best thing that, for, society. I mean, I disagree with you, but I understand where you're coming from. You're an anarchist on the other hand, like, okay, I disagree with you, but I see where you're coming from. You're an intersectionalist, I even more disagree with you, but I took a course in the fucking theory, so I was like, yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. I just think all three of you are fools. But I can still have, I can still have a conversation with you,
Yeah.
I just don't respect your ideas.
And to kind of get back onto topic a little bit, is like, the problem that why these things are so bad when forced into stuff like this Green Lantern movie, or basically like all the other stuff, and why, even though it does feel odd when putting it, but not as bad when putting it to something like, say, High Guardian Spice, is because like people say, well, these things aren't for, and like you aren't the target audience for these things, which yeah, I agree with them with something like High Guardian Spice. The problem is,
High Guardian Spice, we definitely were not the target audience for that.
Yeah, let me finish. It's like I agree with them that like in High Guardian Spice, we are not the target audience. But then we go to stuff like the Green Lantern, Beware My Power, the Legion of Superheroes, all these type of DC and Marvel stuff. Like, we are the target audience. Like, you're using the products that we are the actual. Yeah, it's like you're using the products that we are the actual target audience of. Like, so therefore, you are choosing to target us with these things, and we don't want these things. In fact, we know for facts we don't want these things because we see just how badly the box office of all these things are. It's like, throughout this entire Phase 4, the only movie that actually made a profit was the Doctor Strange movie. And even then, it wasn't enough to justify it. And that even includes the shows and the comics. But then you go to something like, say, something that actually gives the fans what they wanted, the Spider-Man No Way Home, and it actually made a profit in a time span that everyone thought that making a profit wouldn't work.
Oh, excuse me.
Your excuse.
But, yeah, it's just, well, you're not the target audience. Who, pray tell, besides superhero fans, is the fucking target audience of the superhero genre? Like, seriously. It's like, well, you're not the target audience. Like, yeah, like the Lord of the Rings fans, if their only interest is in fantasy, are gonna go fucking watch Star Trek. What the fuck is wrong with you people, right?
Yeah. Oh, man. Like, I understand the target audience type of argument. The problem is they're using it for the wrong things. Like, again, High Guardian Spice, it works there because we are not the target audience. We're not the target audience. You can clearly tell who are the target audience for that. It's like, yeah, they may or may not enjoy it. It has nothing to do with us. But then we go to like stuff like these comic movies. Like, yeah, we are the target audience. So and you're supposed to actually be doing stuff that would actually appeal to the fans. The fact that you're going against the grain on everything against them is the issue.
But, yeah, so if you can't tell, the one person watching this, I guess, not a big fan of, the DC, DC animated movies.
I think that might be.
What?
Hello?
I didn't hear a word of that. What'd you say?
Oh, I was saying, I said, hang on. Because I think that one person that was watching might have just been me.
Oh. Alright, fair enough.
Okay, does it still say that someone's watching?
Yeah.
Oh, then it wasn't just me.
Anyway, so, back onto the point. This definitely wasn't a hell of a ramble.
I mean, it goes to show you how interwoven all this issue is.
I don't know, it's all dumb to be perfectly honest. If we went back to just telling good stories, and that's all we really need, is just get back to telling good stories. Leave all this fucking, like, interjecting politics where it doesn't belong out of the stories. Like, if you want to tell politics in your story, then you can do that. It's actually really easy to do that. You can do it in the X-Men is a good example of this. Because the X-Men, you had things like the Superhuman Registration Act, which actually makes sense as something that would be proposed in the world of the X-Men, just based on everything that's going on in the world of the X-Men. That makes a lot of sense. But then you have cases where...
It's like, after you say that you work with the X-Men, like, I'll be honest, after you said that you could work with the X-Men, you started breaking.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that's just on your end, but I can say there's a way to properly introduce and use politics in your story, and the way you do it is you don't just go and you beat people over the head with, oh, there's another world. Wait, no, this is where I came from. What happens if we go back? Anyway, the proper way to introduce... Hold on, what is it? Yeah, I've been on here for 77 minutes.
Okay, I'll let you finish what you were saying, and then I'll say my part.
Okay, so the point I was going to say is that there's a proper way to introduce and even exploit politics in your story, and that's by doing it organically within the story for the purpose of the story. So, for example, the Superhuman Registration Act makes sense for the world of the X-Men because there is the real concern that, basically muggles, to use the Harry Potter term, would have in that, this guy, I don't know if this guy over here can just kill me and my entire family by opening his eyes, like Cyclops. So it's the whole concept of, this would really scare people, especially if this was a thing they didn't know about before and suddenly they're aware of it. And so this does bring up issues of things like authoritarianism and libertarianism, even on multiple different areas. You can make a lot of complex interactions here, or like in Ghost in the Shell, when we talk about things like how the world is set up so that the different nations relate to each other, we can understand how this world better works and how things have changed from the presumed present that is now, right? But when you don't do that is to just use it as a curmudgeon to bash home a point, as if you think the reader is too dumb to understand what you're trying to say. Robert Heinlein is a good example of this. People talk about how he's an authoritarian or a libertarian. Never fucking read his works. Because if you read Starship Troopers and, the moon is a harsh mistress, you understand this guy is not writing his own politics into the story. Because the person who agrees with the point of the moon is a harsh mistress and Starship Troopers are not the same fucking person. There's two wildly different philosophies at work here. And I'd argue that's the mark of a good writer, is someone who can write from a perspective he does not agree with. There's no way he agrees with both of those positions simultaneously. And can yet convince the reader that not only is the piece entertaining, and the piece is well written or well composed or well made, but also convince the reader that, hey, maybe he actually does believe this. Because that's what he's writing. He's writing a story about a world that's not his own, and he's writing it to explore a philosophy, even if it's a political philosophy, even if it's not his own. I think that's a hallmark of a good writer right there. So.
Yeah, it's like some of the best work that you and me really enjoy is many of them. It's like when you look at basically what's written inside the text, not everything that happens out of it, but specifically in the actual text, scenes, etc. It's kind of, you sometimes have difficulties figuring out which side of the political spectrum the person falls under, because they either keep it out of their work, or they do such a good job trying to balance it to the point where it's like the political aspect is more of a dressing rather than the actual cake.
Well, the thing is, you can even make politics the center of your story. Just think about, for example, Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
It is a political thriller. So it's like, yeah, you can make politics the a central player that's how you did it, in the story. Because as long as it's, it actually makes sense for the situation and the context. I'm trying to think of a particular story where politics was the focus of the story, because that's a thing called political fiction. But I don't read a lot of political fiction, so I I'm struggling to come up with one where the politics is the main point. The cursory look around isn't exactly giving me any help.
Yeah.
Wait, Bridge of Spice!
Huh?
Bridge of Spice!
Oh, yeah.
The entire thing is a political conflict the entire time. But, you know, it's still an engaging story, because the point is not necessarily the politics, or even if it is the politics, it's still written in a way that's like, you know, it still functions as a good story.
I think the thing that kind of helps that one is that it's actually based off an actual real event, and the person who the story is following is basically one of the few real life examples of a hero, but not the type that you would normally think was something like with the other guys.
I mean, there's a lot of like real life superheroes where it's like, look, I really want to see a movie made out of this guy. Like, the way, like, I'll give you an example. Chiune Sugihara is basically the Japanese equivalent to the Germans' John Ram. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't speak Zikyle. But like, most people don't know who that is. Like, John Ram was a card-carrying Nazi member during the rape, in China during the rape of Nanking, and he just, I love the way, knowing better, even though I don't agree with most of his videos, I love the way he described it. He was like a swastika armband-wearing Batman, just going around stopping rapes and murders. He's like, yeah, you couldn't touch him. Nazi Germany was the ally of the Japanese. It's like, what, are you going to kill the ambassador? He saved so many people's lives, and it, ironically enough, it's because of that stupid band on his arm. You know, but also, there's the issue of, like, if you take Chiune Sugihara, it's the exact opposite. He was the Japanese ambassador, and he's recognized as one of the righteous among the nations because he was basically the equivalent there. He used the fact that he was the ambassador to an evil regime, you know, to save people's lives. And it's like, yes, this is not what you would expect for example, oh my god, okay, maybe I should have been exploring villages more than just get myself massacred. Those would be interesting movies.
This is a massacre run.
Yeah, but those would be interesting movies to see. But also, you know, what else would be? A movie about Motsu. Motsu, you know, I've told you the story about how he stopped the war by going to the larger nation, the general of the larger nation, and being like, hey, let's play some war games. And he beat him 9 times in a row. When the general threatened to kill him, he's like, what do you, I mean, you can kill me now, but all of my students know I've taught my students everything I know. You're still gonna lose if you wage the war. That's fucking brilliant.
It was literally a game of chicken and he won.
Okay, he won spectacularly.
Yeah.
Oh shit, wrong button. Have at! Oh, hold on, what happens if I strike? Have at thee! Oh, okay, fair enough.
You're immortal.
I heard stories about an ancient tomb that holds a powerful weapon in the desert. Well, this game kicked my ass for right now, so I guess the next time we play it, we're gonna use the controller.
I have a feeling you're probably not going to fare that much better.
I don't remember what button I used to get out of this last time.
Oh no, we're soft locked.
There we go. Hey, did I go on here? Interesting.
So, should we say more about the 2 movies, or did we basically say everything that we wanted to?
Well, we talked about most of the stuff that bothered us. We talked about the intersectionalism just baked into the movies for no discernible reason other than, you know, the fact that people think that representation is about race and not about values and, like, you know, experience. So we talked about that.
Individual people.
Yeah, or individual people. I love the fact that, like, the math of intersectionalism, if you will, leads directly to individualism, but intersectionists refuse to take that last fucking, like, operational thing, the last operational narration that leads to that. They always cut it off before then. It's like, interesting. The math literally leads to the individual is the most oppressed minority, but you stop before that because that's not what you're using it to. You're not using it because it works, you're using it because it's a tool to get what you want. Anyway, so we talked a little bit about that, the race swapping and the fucking, like, racializing in general. We talked about the fact that they took one of the foremost example of a good Daxamite and turned him into a villain, undermining the entire fucking purpose of Mon-El. And I didn't even think about this. Why is Mon-El doing everything in the movie? Because he idolizes Krypton. And he sees Superman as the embodiment of that.
And he's going against everything Superman stands for.
Which I guess you could say is kind of the point. But also, I still just don't like the idea of just arbitrarily demoralizing Mon-El for no fucking reason. I'm still salty about that.
And like I said, they had outs for this. Like it could have been the origin story of him becoming a good guy, or the route I would much rather prefer, he was mind controlled.
Yeah,
like,
see, I was hoping that too.
We literally had two outs for him in this movie, and they did neither.
Yeah. But let's be fair, they wanted to destroy Mon-El as a character.
Yeah. And that's why I say that these movies basically fail, because the actual people who they're targeting, they're actively doing everything they can to sabotage.
Oh, you read this. So it seems like there's one more area that we can explore here, and we'll just explore this place and then we'll call it a night, okay? You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, because you didn't respond to that.
I'm sorry, you're kind of breaking up there for a little bit, so I had no idea what you even asked.
Oh, I said, we're just gonna explore this spot for just a little bit, then we'll call it a night for today, okay?
Okay, yeah, we kind of rambled on a lot here. It's like, funny, we started this thing saying that we're going to only stick to these two movies, and they're kind of the ones we spoke about the least.
They're not good movies! Like, I'm gonna go out on the limb here and say, if you're gonna make an adaptation, by definition, the adaptation must contain the essence, the thing that makes it what it is, and carry it over from one medium to another. So if I'm gonna adapt, for example, let's say One Piece to a live-action movie series, yes, I picked that one on purpose because we know that this is gonna be an example of a failed adaptation. It has to carry with it those essential elements, at minimum, which make One Piece specifically One Piece and not any other manga or story. The problem is that this includes keeping characters as essential characters as they essentially are. To keep those properties of those characters, as they are in the story. The problem with this, though, is that they don't do this. Like, adaptations are not interested in the modern day in doing this.
I know you're going to. Grant, I know for a fact you're going to have to make changes.
Yeah, of course. There's things you can't do in a fucking book that you can in a comic, for example.
Hang on. Yeah, the reason why Luffy has this powers list, and Luffy's and all these characters have their powers that work the way of how they do. It's specifically designed to help the flow in the manga, which, when they're translating to the anime and even to many of the movies, they clearly had difficulties doing so because it was a practice designed specifically for the manga. And as I basically was talking about how you can only do so much in live action when compared to animated or comics. The fact that this Netflix live action One Piece story that they're doing, I'm pretty sure they're going to have even a harder time adapting many of these aspects over again.
Oh yeah, but also you know for a fact that they're just gonna pull a Cowboy Bebop and completely not give a shit about the original story for characters, and they're just going to reimagine them in a way that fits their fancy because they're narcissists who don't fucking care that they didn't make this. They need to make it theirs instead of just continuing what they were handed in trust.
Oh, and because you brought up, that's also another issue I have with many of these writers who basically do these adaptations that are horrible, is that not only are they making these adaptations extremely horrible, but they treat it as such as these characters and stories wouldn't ever exist if it wasn't for them. It's like they treat it as if they were the OG writers who designed these characters and works, and so thus they are the law on how it should be operated.
Yeah, it's like, again, as I said, they're narcissists. Oh, there is fall damage apparently.
You just have to be very high up.
Alright, so I guess that's it for today.
Yeah, I think we kind of rambled on everything that we wanted to, plus a bazillion other things. Nice going with the constant death run.
Right? So, I mean, this is my first time playing the game, and I'm playing with a handicap. So, well, I don't know what to say other than I fucking hated Green Lantern. Fucking, Beware My Power. It's not worth watching. Like, pirate it if you have to see it. I'm not paying for this fucking movie. I'll pay for other good movies, but not this one. And Legion of Superheroes is not even worth a watch. I mean,
yeah,
it's just that simple. The devil is not owed his due because his due was to make the fucking adaptation. And if you fail at the adaptation, it doesn't really matter if the other certain elements work because that wasn't the purpose of your project.
Yeah, and the worst part about all of this is that DC's animated runs have always been the highlight of superheroes type of stories. Yeah, even before the MCU became as big as it was, or superhero became so ingrained into pop culture, DC was always a masterpiece when it came to their animated work. Yeah, there were always those duds, but they had a habit of making more hits with their animated works than they did with flops. Now recently, it just feels like even that has gone down the tube, where even works like these two, where at first it seems like that they're doing great and amazing, and then they decide to change the biggest parts to something that is crappy, and thus ruining the entire movies and even shows.
Look, all I gotta say is we have a backup plan. We have plenty of indie writers. You have the Rippaverse. You have, for example, the Blade Devil. You have Common America. You have Black Hops. You have Abba's Demon. To be fair, me name dropping Abba's Demon would not be appreciated by the person who wrote it. I guarantee you, she would not like me.
Hell, we basically have the entire Japanese market, and also to a lesser extent Bollywood, and many of these other type of Hollywood knockout type of studios designing their own type of products, not caring about what the global standard is.
Well, no, I'm saying if you want Western comics. And granted, obviously, manga is just comics, just with a Japanese philosophy and styling. It's the same thing with manhwa. Manhwa is just fucking Korean comics, and manhwa is Chinese comics. It's and it is. I hate it when people are like, "Well, they're different medium." No, they're not. They're the exact same medium. They're all comics. The difference is that they're different traditions. There's different traditions that build up manga and build up comics. That's why you can find particular things like, fights are depicted in different ways. I saw a YouTube video actually about it, explaining how fights are depicted differently in comics than they are in mangas. Yeah, because guess what? It's a different tradition. It developed independently, from it, so it has a different visual language.
Yeah, it's and they're focused on different aspects, and even if you have the two different versions doing the exact same type of fight, say we have a Batman-esque character versus a Punisher-esque character, both in the West and East, the way how they would fight would drastically, how they depict the fight will vary drastically from each other, even if we're going through the same type of flow. But again, that's because they like to, the East, mainly Japan, likes to focus on aspects that us in the West wouldn't even care, wouldn't really focus on, and then vice versa.
Yeah. So, I guess that's my last hot take. Anime and manga are not their own mediums. Anime is just Japanese animation, just like cartoons are just Western animation. And manga is just Japanese comics, just like Western comics are just a kind of comic. We don't have a particular word for that, because guess what? We use, just like the Japanese don't usually call American comics, they call them American manga. It's the exact same thing, except we have different traditions, different languages, and different structures that undergird these particular products. So anyway, I guess that should be it. If anyone watches this rambling on YouTube, I guess I apologize for going off on a movie that was not even mid, to be perfectly, in my opinion, to be perfectly honest. I could not stand that movie. And the thing is, like, when you go off on something like this, it's not because you don't care about the thing. You only go off on something when you have something to care about. Like, you're not going to write, for example, a video essay, for example, on, like, how Evangelion sucks. Which is not an opinion I hold, by the way. I actually really like Evangelion. But you're not going to write a whole video essay on why Evangelion sucks if you didn't care about something in the thing in the first place. It's a point of fact, even if it's just the potential for it.
Yeah, it's like there's been hundreds of games, shows, movies, books, comics I have watched, read, play that are absolutely garbage. And if I ever decide to talk about any of them, it will basically be like less than a paragraph or maybe 2 paragraphs at most talking about them and why I didn't like them. But that's because I had no interest in them. For something like these 2 movies, the entire Phase 4 of the MCU, and whatever the hell's happening in the comics, the reason why us and so many people rant on and on and on and on and on about them is because we actually care about them. We loved what they were, what they represented, and hate how they have become.
Yeah, so before we continue on this like unending tangent, again, if you listen to this whole thing through, okay, fair enough. Just I guess you could put that in the comments in the video. I question why you're just listening to 2 dumbasses talk about their opinions on, again, mid movies. So I guess we'll see you in the next stream. So I guess bye.
See ya.